Hello everyone and welcome to the program Business Point on Global Television. My name is Samuel Odi. Many thanks for joining. So, it's no longer news that we've experienced a whole lot of heavy downpour and mostly parts that have been affected by the rainfall that we experienced this year are majorly states in the north. But the one state has been hit majorly and almost half of the entire state is flooded. The city of Maiduguri, that's in Borno State. The devastating flood hit Maiduguri on the 10th of September and left a whole lot of persons homeless, displaced, and businesses being into a shambles. So a whole lot have been put in place, measures are being put in place, donations from good Nigerians, United Nations, and private individuals coming together to donate to see that people in that part of the country, that is Maiduguri, that have been affected by the flood, get quick help and aid. This has not been recorded for the past 3 decades in Maiduguri. The devastation break of the Alo Dam, which is just 10 kilometers away from the city center, broke and then struck heavily. It was said it was due to infrastructural damage, and then a lot of questions are being asked by Nigerians. Was there no sign? Were there no people supervising the dam to, bring it to the notice of the state government that, okay, something needs to be done concerning this dam? A lot of persons have argued that the dam was opened intentionally so as to have people suffer, but I don't think there is any sitting government with its right sense that would want to put its citizen in a dilemma such as that. Massive places were affected. University of Maiduguri was seriously affected. University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, Lagos Street, the Shehus Palace, St. Patrick's, Secretariat, Monday Market, Ahmad Bellowe, Bulunkutu, and Bolori. All of these areas were seriously affected by the flood. But a whole lot of things are being done, reaching that donations ranging to up to 12 billion has gotten to the state. And then just a few days ago, Governor Zulum put in place set aside communities to be able, committee rather, to be able to, cushion and then make distributions of all of this, having some EFCC officials as well as part of those committees. So we are going to be explaining why we've been having this delay. Today is the 23rd, and then this incident happened on the 10th. We have had roughly 2 weeks since the incident. Now we want to explain why all of these delays are happening. We'll be going on a quick break, and then when we return back, I have my guests here with me in the studio who help us understand this, and then measures that need to be put in place so as not to see incidents like this happen again in the near future. Please do stay with us. We'll be right back. Yes, many thanks for staying with us if you're just joining. This is Midday Discourse on Global Television. More warnings have come by NEMA, given that some other states and then a huge sum of thunderstorm would be experienced this week. And again, our neighboring country, Cameroon, are also calling on the federal government of Nigeria and then stating that they also need to open their dam to avoid flooding. And then now 11 states out of the 36 states of the federation is under watch list, and then NEMA has sent out warnings in that effect, given the fact that if nothing is done and then this dam gets opened by our neighboring country, Cameroon, we would likely experience massive flooding in those areas. Joining me live in the studio is Mr. Ramsey. Thank you so much for joining despite short notice.
Time check. It's midday. Then it's Midday Discourse. Midday Discourse is a program
It's
that
always
covers
great to have
trending
conversations
local
with
and
you
international
aside
news,
sports, because
current issues, and human-related topics.
That's
Join
aside
Samuel
sports, it's
these
also great to have
weekdays, 1
this
p.m.
conversation
on
regarding
Global
national
Television.
issues
The
and then the well-being of
discussion
Nigerians.
starts here.
It's no longer news. There's a whole lot going on in the country, you know, on the negative and also on the positive notes. But now, it's just sad that it struck us in a negative aspect. Looking at the flooding now that happened in Maiduguri, what is your reaction to that?
Well, this is not the first time we're having issues of flooding in this country, and these things keep happening, and preventive measures are not put in place. One of the things that's actually shocking to me is the fact that these things happens and you see people running helter-skelter, like there was no pre-information that it was going to happen, and like it has not happened before. And one other very surprising thing is the fact that people are becoming comfortable with these things. You know, like Nimet will always tell you, these things will happen. It's going to be rainy. There might be flood. If you hear that there might be flood and you live in a flood-prone area, you don't need to be told before you swing into action. Do the necessary things that you are supposed to do. I'm talking about dam. If you have waters that needs to be dredged, it should be dredged, because certainly there might be overflow during the rainy seasons. So these things need to be done. I think the pathetic aspect of it is that at the end of the day, the average Nigerians are the receiving end, and look at the number of people being displaced right now. People can't go to school anymore. This is a nation where we are trying everything possible to salvage some other situations that have resulted from certain policies. And this disaster is happening. We are so glad. You know, these are things that we hear in other countries. You know, when you hear about tornado, you hear about hurricanes, you hear about landslide, and a whole a whole lot of other things. But ours is now flooding, which to an extent can be controlled. But then the question is, what is now the fate of the people being displaced by this flooding? Because thousands. People are being displaced. People in their thousands. We're not talking about people that have lost their lives. People who lost their loved ones. The psychological effect of this. The traumatic effect of this. You know, so many things. The emotional effects that come from this. When would people really forget this flooding? Forget about the fact that people are talking about, okay, IDP, you get to IDP, you get settled, you know, people are trying to raise funds and all of that. But then, some people may never forget this trauma. Some people may not forget this for life, because the effect, the scar of this flooding may remain with some persons for the rest of their life. So this, well, if I think about this situation,
yes,
there is a way I feel. I feel, because what I do most times as a Nigerian is trying to put myself in the shoes of people who have been affected by this disaster and see how they feel. So on the whole, for me, it is not a good one at all.
It is not a good one at all. Looking at the city of Maiduguri, in the past year, just immediately after the election, the Monday market, which is the major market of that city, got burnt, and then the state just recovered from that. And way before that, insurgency, that's Boko Haram, has been a major threat in the same city for over a decade now. So Maiduguri has been on the backlash of a whole lot of disasters, you know, and then them coming out from surviving, you know, with the governor, with the help of the governor and the help of its citizen, Muhammad Zulum, it has been a whole lot of back and forth. Now, looking at it now, a whole lot of people have been expecting to see a swift reaction from the governor, given the fact that support has been coming in, now support ranging and counting in amount of millions. Now, do you think the governor stalled for a reason before creating this committee for the palliative distribution that he just created?
Well, I think in
It's
advanced
midday.
countries,
Then it's
there are
Midday
funds
Discourse.
set
Midday
aside for this
Discourse
kind
is a
of thing.
program that
And that's
covers
the reason we
trending
have the
local
likes of
and
NEMA.
international news.
That's why if anything
current
like this
issues
happens,
and
you hear
human-related
people say
topics.
things like,
Join
oh, let
Samuel
NEMA
D.
come to their
weekdays
aid.
1
Let NEMA,
p.m.
meaning
on Global Television. The discussion starts here.
circumstances. These are things nobody ever prayed for. But then as humans, we know these things will definitely happen. Now that it has happened, apart from the state waiting, okay, for swift action from well-meaning Nigerians and people at the diaspora and people around the world, I think the first thing you will do is swing into action immediately. All right? No matter how little the funds may be, the little you can do, you swing into action and do it immediately. Let the people know that you have the heart. The feeling is there. You really want to do more. Then people will start saying, okay, there is this willingness to salvage this situation, to bring everything under control, but probably the funding is not there. Then you see people coming in. That is one. But then, you asked the question.
Yes.
Okay. I think from your question, what I deduce from your question is that you feel the governor or the authorities concerned didn't swing into action in time. All right. This is what it is. As a matter of fact, so many things happen in this country, and people wait for the blame game, looking for who to blame. This is not time to blame anyone. We are not trying to say the governor has not done well, because number one, the number one thing they did was to get these people settled in a different place. That is the IDP camp,
yes.
the internally displaced persons camp. And this camp was put together. Most times they use schools, all right? They use locations, all right? As it is right now, the first thing that was done was to get these people settled.
Settled, yes.
But then, after getting settled, they've lost. Some persons cannot even remember anything. I think there might even be some other persons that were actually rushed to the hospital because they needed to be treated. They needed to be resuscitated. Some persons went unconscious and needed to be resuscitated. Some persons got drawn. Some persons, you know, a lot of emergency situations and responses actually came for people to be rescued. Then what they did was to get these people settled at the IDP camp first, to know who is alive, to know who needs what.
Head count.
Yes, head count. To know who is missing, who is alive. Because as at now, I think some persons are still trying to look for their loved ones. Because immediately this thing happened, a lot of people ran to different places. You know how flooding happens.
Yes.
You know, you swim before, you know, so you know how these things happen. So the most important thing that the governor did was to get the IDP camps, all right, ready for the people to be settled, have where to lay their head these few days before they start thinking of other things. I think that step was a good one in a good direction. But the things that we're supposed to follow need to be done step by step. You don't just wake up overnight and begin to do things, because you need to really know the originally displaced people, because we heard, okay, that some illegal persons were even scampering for materials, you know, and these are not people displaced. But looking at the situation of the country and everything happening, because people are hungry, there is no doubt about that. The Nigerians are hungry, and for that reason, some persons, even though they are not part of the people displaced, they are now parading themselves as people that have been displaced by the flood. These are illegal. It was on the papers. Everyone knew about it. These are people that are claiming to be displaced but not displaced. So there is this sifting that needs to happen, trying to separate the weed from the chaff from the seed, so that you know who is really displaced and who is not displaced before anything can even be done. Or else you try doing the right thing and you do it the wrong way, and at the end of the day you begin to run shortage. Things begin you begin to have shortage, and the original people who need these things, it may not get to them. So this is not something to just rush into. It is supposed to be done step by step based on my own calculation.
Yeah, looking at the kind of person Governor Zulum is, who is very, very technical and very, very strategic, and from what has been said, he's a man of the people and he cares so much for the people. Because of this report reaching us and all over the media space now, the governor had to set a committee and then have some security operatives, part of those committees, to be able to curb out those people that are not affected by the flood who are coming in. So a whole lot of persons tends to take advantage of situations, but I don't think this is going to be one of those opportunities for those, given the fact that the EFCC is part of the committee that has been set aside. So what's your reaction to the governor having the EFCC and security agencies part of his committee for the distribution?
Number one, the governor looking at the situation of the country and the perspective and the mindset that people have concerning the country when it comes to things like this, the first thing that will come to people's mind, we are journalists, all right? So most times we get into the people and we hear what the people are saying.
Yes.
One thing that the governor will have to do is to save his head as a politician.
Yes.
And for record purpose. So for him to save his head, a committee needed to be set up. And that was exactly what he did. This is not something that one person can do. This is not something that should be left to NEMA alone. We were being made to understand that over 12 billion was raised. All right? And still counting.
Counting, yes.
Yeah, and still counting. This money, how is it going to be spent? How are they expending it? These are things that we should look at. And having EFCC security operatives in the committee is a welcome development for me, because it's just like you saying, all right, I want to be transparent. Let everything be done in transparency. You bring these people in, they sit down and they report back to you whatever they are doing, because as the #1 chief security of the state and the father of the state, he needs to supervise the process. But then having all these people in the committee is a welcome development, because there are some things you would want to do and someone will advise you, don't do it like this because it is going to contravene section this of the Constitution.
Yes.
And that will call certain people to order. And another thing is that whoever that is even in that committee that may have an ulterior motive that may be corrupt. We are not saying the people selected are corrupt.
Yes.
But then sometimes you wouldn't know. In every 12 disciple, there might be a Judas. So you can't really take it away. We're not accusing the people selected in this committee to be corrupt. But then for these things to be done properly, so that there is no corrupt practices, having EFCC or ICPC or security operatives in the committee may serve as deterrent, maybe may serve as a note of warning, okay, or maybe a signal sort of, for people who may want to,
who have intentions,
okay, divert things or maybe have ulterior motives. So having these people in the committee for me is a welcome development, and it is in a bid for Governor Zulum to save his head. These things came from different people. You know, this money The monies came from different people, relief materials. A pastor of a particular church, Dunamis International Gospel Center, Dr. Pastor Paul Enenche and the wife, there is this video on social media making rounds. People appreciating him for what he did, for the things they took there, you know, and how he even ran there to show the people that they also are humans and they have human feelings. And I don't know how much was dropped, but they were relief material, trucks of products. And I heard that more will still be sent, because having seen the situation, it is one thing to be on ground to see what is happening, and it is another thing to see from afar, see only what the media is covering. By the time you get there and you see the situation yourself, we know that man of God to be a very sympathetic man of God. You see him cry in most of his videos, most times when he sees people sick and all of that. So that burden, you know, it's something that will make you want to do more. Haven't seen the people, haven't seen the situation yourself. So Governor Zulum, seeing the situation himself, being at the center of the whole thing, may not want anything, not a drop, a grain of rice or whatever, to be mismanaged. And setting up this committee is a pointer to the fact that he really wants this thing to be done thoroughly without anyone diverting anything.
We'll be looking at other angles of this conversation when we return from this break. But before we go on the break right now, there's also an imam who was seen, as well as giving distribution of grains and as well as medical support to as much as he can. Over hundreds of, you know, recipients of that his outreach just this past few days as well, which was also ravaging the social media space. We'll be going on the quick break, and then when we return back, we would continue this conversation. Please do stay with us. thanks for staying with us. If you just joined, this is Midday Discourse on Global Television. We've been having an interesting conversation about the committees that have been set aside for the distribution of relief materials in the affected states, majorly affected states of Maiduguri, looking at the donations that have been made by individuals, United Nations, NGOs, and IOCs. All of these angles have been covered, and then Mr. Ramsey, who is live with me in the studio, has made a lot of justice to those angles. Looking at the kind of person Governor Zulum is, who is someone that we know is upright and has the good and the goodwill of the people at heart, is definitely going to do everything within its powers. But let's look at this. You know, it was said that it was an industrial default, right? What do you think can be done now for us not to witness something like this in the near future? And other states too, to take care about what you're about to say.
Yeah, I think, like I said when we got started, these kind of things, like there are agencies that should be in charge of environmental disaster. That's why the Ministry of Works, and the Ministry of Housing, you know, they need to monitor certain things. All right. Then when you come to the local government, in the local government there should be people who are in charge of these things. Let it not just be about revenue generation alone. Okay. Let it not be that somebody will just walk to your office and said, I am from internal revenue, I am from local government revenue, and they collect your money. If you don't have, they close your shop and all of that. It shouldn't just end there. The people, we're talking, was it on Global Morning or somewhere, we're talking about the fact that some persons, some individuals are actually contributing to this environmental disaster, this flooding.
How's that?
Because a lot of people, what they do is, when there is rain, they just go and pour refuse inside the water
and
flowing
and building around waterways.
Yeah, they block these runways. The drainages are being blocked, and when heavy rain comes, there is no channel for it to flow into wherever it's been directed to, and this constitutes a lot of problem. But people don't look at that area. When things happen, they start blaming the government. See, individuals have roles to play. Whether it was an industrial action, or the situation came from maybe an industry or something, a breakage or whatever it is, there should be proper supervision. All right, monitoring and supervision should be taken very seriously at the local government level, because they are the closest to the people. They can monitor what the people do. If you notice or you discover anyone doing it, you can call on the authorities. Every market, for instance, have the leaders, people who are in charge of these markets.
Yes.
People like that can actually be reported to the authorities to say, well, this is what this person is doing, and this thing is capable of blocking the drainage. At the end of the day, it will result to flooding, because when the rain comes and there is no passage for this water, it flows outside, and before you know it, when the rain is heavy, because you can't predict this rain, sometimes you see it raining very heavily and the water flow outside into people's houses, breaking down fences, like it happened in Onitsha, you know, where a woman and the children were sleeping at night, and the flood came and broke the fence, and the fence fell on the wall of their house, broke the house, the water went to the house, washed away the woman and the 3 kids. In the morning, the woman was found lifeless. You know, the 3 kids discovered somewhere else. So these are things that can be preventable. You don't know the impact of this flooding when it's small. Okay, but the more these drainages are being blocked, the heavier the flooding when it comes. So these are things that actually can be done. So now, thank God that the cause of the flooding is being discovered, it's been known. Now, the authorities can do 1 or 2 things so that it doesn't happen again. We mustn't wait until it happens, then we'll start thinking of control measures. I think prevention, they said, is better than cure.
True.
So I think I know the pedigree of Governor Zulum. He has been doing, I think he's gotten awards in the past for what he's doing in Borno State. And I know he will rise to the occasion. Until his tenure, I don't think this kind of thing will repeat itself again. Maybe, probably, some persons, okay, who were actually supposed to make sure these things don't happen, though we said, we heard that this is unplanned for, and that's why it's a disaster. Nobody saw it coming for Borno State. Nobody saw it coming, but now that it has happened, I know the government will start looking at other places that might be prone to this flooding so that it doesn't happen again.
As the government and the committee are putting heads together for the distribution of these palliatives to happen, what approach do you think they should take as in terms of distribution? What angle do you think they should focus more on? Automatically, we know it's going to start with women and children first, even if that has not been in the media space, but we know that these two genders are very, very key, and these two sets of humans are very, very important to the society. So we would say advocates for mothers and children to be taken care of first before my gender would then find a way to sort out themselves. So looking at those angles now, how key is it going to be that, you know, given the fact that people lost their homes and the fact that a lot of people are homeless, how key is it going to be that a huge amount of these resources would go into medicals and, you know, housing schemes for the affected individuals?
In fact, coincidentally, you laughed and I smiled. Someone may be watching and wondering why are we smiling. It was coincident because when we were talking about women and children, something came to my mind because of some things that have happened. In the past, how women had actually been taken care of in Nigeria here. And what came to my mind is, oh, you're even talking about women. The women you're talking about are now campaigning that what a man can do, a woman can do better. And they don't want to be looked at as a weaker vessel anymore. That's the reason we smiled. By the way, whatever the reason is that we smiled or laughed, that's by the way. Now, coming to your question right now, as a matter of fact, procedures must have been put in place on how these things should be done. And that's the reason why Governor Zulum set up that committee. If you look at that committee, apart from the fact that we just talked about the security agencies that are part of the committee, there are other people that are part of the committee that are key, that would know how these things should be done. First of all, the focus should be how these people can be alive. Because, as a matter of fact, we talked about the fact that some persons are out of school already. Some persons have lost their jobs automatically already, that businesses already gone. A whole lot has been lost in Borno State. Now, the money is on ground, and I'm not even sure if that money can fix what has actually happened. The destruction, what has been lost already. I'm not very sure if the 12 billion or thereabout naira would be able to fix everything that has been destroyed by this natural disaster. So what are we talking about here? As it is right now, the first thing is how to keep these people alive. How do you keep people alive? People that were injured already in the hospital, as they are leaving the hospital, they should have where to go to and what to eat. Very, very key, what to eat. Because if you're hungry, so many things run through your mind, that apart from the psychological effect, the emotional effect, the trauma that came from this flooding. If hunger is added to it, it's something else. You know what I'm talking about? So as it is, what should be done is, first of all, make sure these people are alive. Okay? Those ones struggling for life should be properly taken care of. Those ones that their health is in danger, they should be properly taken care of. Then you begin to talk about how you can separate the real displaced people and the other people parading themselves as being displaced, that was referred to as illegal displaced persons. They are not really displaced, but because they saw that, oh, mattresses are being given to people, oh, food item, bag of rice and all of that, condiments and the rest is being given to people who are being displaced as a result of the flooding, they go join them too. even though they are not displaced. So the key areas is to make sure these people stay alive. Number one thing is to make sure they stay alive. That is taking care of the people who have health challenges resulting from this flooding. Then you help them look for a conducive place to stay. The place should be fumigated, the place should be free of mosquito, because one thing that Nigerians are prone to is malaria. So the environment where they are staying should be kept very clean. Right? The place should be at least places that will not make them think, oh, how I wish I'm in my house, even though there is no place like home. You can't take that away, but then it is a natural disaster. You can't do anything about it. It has happened. So the health of these people should be the number one priority for now.
Yes, as we about to draw the curtain on today's edition of the program, the federal government obviously would are in talks with Cameroon on their dam opening, as well as the governor of Borno State, Muhammadu Zulum, who is trying his possible best with his committee to improving the life standards of those that have been affected during this course of flooding, as they are all put hands on deck to be able to see to the actualization of this effect. We hope to see that these measures will be put in place so we wouldn't have this kind of backlash in the near future. Mr. Ramsey, thank you so much for joining on today's edition of the program. That's how much time will permit us to take.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and then thank you to the whole team that made this production possible. My name is Samuel Odi. Bye for now.
I'm not taking the team.